Today I'm going to be doing a video that I did quite some time ago. I have a lot of comments on it, and I did not do the recipe in grams. So what I did today was I weighed everything out, and I have the exact grams, which I will show on screen just after we start the video. So this is my fast and easy brownie recipe. There are only 6 ingredients, really fun, really delicious. So let's get started. So what we're going to need is 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. This is also called plain flour in some countries. 3/4 of a cup of salted butter, and if you're using unsalted butter, you're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this recipe. 1 cup of chocolate chips, and I'm using semi-sweet chocolate chips in this recipe, but you can use any type of chocolate that you wish. 3 eggs, 1 cup of granulated sugar, and a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. So those are the ingredients, so let's get started. So I've set up my little hot plate here. This is exactly the same kind of element that you would have on the top of your stove. So I've got that going. I've got some water here, and to speed the process up, I've already put hot water in here. You just need a little bit. I'm going to grab a glass bowl and put that on top. And what this is going to do, it's going to gently heat our ingredients without actually burning them. So my first thing, I'm going to get my butter in there. I can take all of my chocolate chips and dump those right in. And all of our sugar. So now what's going to happen is the hot water in our pot is going to start heating our bowl, and it's going to start melting all of our ingredients. So I'm going to let this go for a little while, and I'll come back before it's completely melted so you can see the process. So this is about 3 minutes later, and you can see that a lot of our butter has started to melt, and some of our chocolate chips, and a little bit of our sugar. And I can just get in there with a whisk. I'm not going to be using any electric mixer in this recipe. I'm just going to use our whisk. Very simple today. So I'm just going to let this go for a little while longer, and I'll come back in a bit. So this is about maybe 3 minutes later. Not very long later, and you can see everything is really starting to melt down. And as I am melting this, I just wanted to mention that you can add vanilla if you wish. In this recipe, I'd add about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And if you don't want to use cocoa powder in this recipe and you want to go all chocolate chips, I would add in another 1/2 cup of chocolate chips to make up for that 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. You can see this is really coming together. And another note is I want to make sure that everything is really melted well, because I don't want to have any of those little sugar granules left over. So by melting this down or heating it up, it's going to get this mixture really nice and smooth. So this is almost ready. I'll be back in about 2 minutes or so. So this is about 2 minutes later. Everything is really melted down well. I can turn my burner off, and we are ready to get on to the next step. So I've just removed this from my heating element, and it's quite hot at this moment. So what I want you to do is just let this sit here for about 15 minutes to cool down. At this time, you can break your eggs. I always like to break my eggs into separate bowls, so that I want to make sure that all of my eggs are good, none of them are bad. I don't want to get any shells in there either. And we're going to be adding in the eggs one at a time. So you can take that time to do that now. Also, at this point, you can preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to let this cool for about 10 minutes, then I'll come back and we're going to finish off this really fast recipe. At this point, my mixture is still warm, but it's not boiling hot, so I'm good to go. I'm going to get my whisk moving around, and then I'm going to add in my first egg. I'll get that incorporated, and just keep mixing, because what that's doing is incorporating air. And by adding air, you're actually cooling down this chocolate mixture. We'll add another one. And our last one. So you can see how rich this is becoming, and the addition of those eggs has really brought this whole mixture together. And you're probably wondering, why didn't I add any baking powder to this? Well, if you start adding baking powder to this, it's going to take this from being a brownie and turning it more into a cake. A brownie is supposed to be very dense, so usually you don't see anything like baking powder or baking soda in the recipe. And then for our last step, we've got a sieve. I'm going to get all of our flour and our cocoa powder, and we'll just sift that right in. And if you were just putting flour in, then you can take the back of your hand and push it all through your sieve, but since that's cocoa powder, I'm just going to use the back of a spoon. Perfect. I'll grab my whisk one last time, and I'm just going to gently get all of this incorporated. And I do have my oven set to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to bake these for about 35 minutes in a 9x9 square pan. And if you want to use an electric mixer, feel free. Oh, can you see how rich this batter is? Such a simple recipe, but it makes amazing brownies. And in case you're wondering, you can add walnuts to this, you can add pecans, anything you wish. I wish you could smell this. It smells so good. Look at this batter. Beautiful. And we are ready to put this in our pan. So right here I have a square pan, 9 by 9 inches square. It's lined with parchment paper. That is also called baking paper in some countries. It's optional. You don't need to use it, but it makes it really easy to get the brownies out. And if you don't use parchment, what you'll want to do is grease the pan, and then you're going to flour your pan. And whenever you're getting batter out of a bowl, it's good to use a spatula because you can get all of that stuff out of your bowl. You don't want to waste any. And that's good. I'll just grab my spatula and just get this into the corners. So if you're adding walnuts, you can actually add them in right now. You could sprinkle them on the top, or you could have mixed them in, you know, before you pour it into the baking pan. I think that's good. We can just tap it a little bit, just even it out a little bit more. And then into my 325 degree oven, I'm going to bake these for about 35 minutes. And here we go. 35 minutes later, my brownies look really, really good. At this point, they're extremely hot, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let these cool down, and then we'll cut into them. Now that our brownies have completely cooled, I'm just going to remove my little metal clips, which are oven safe, and I just grab my parchment paper here, and I can just lift the brownies right out. So let's cut into these, and I'll just show you what they look like inside. Oh, look at that. Really, really moist. Hopefully the camera can pick that up. Super, super moist. Really nice and fudgy. Look at that. Oh, really, really nice. I'm going to have to try a piece, of course. That is so good. Oh, that's really, really good. 6 simple ingredients, really, really easy, very fast, really, really yummy. Now for an optional step, we're going to cover these with some really nice dark chocolate. So I'm going to clean up and I'll come back and we're going to do that next. Alright, I have cleaned up and we are ready to go with our optional step. So I've cut up some of my little brownies here. We'll just place them onto a little drip tray here, a cooling rack. We'll just get all these on here. And what I have here is some dark chocolate. Some really nice stuff. Now you have an optional step. You can actually take these and just take them upside down, give it a little dip, let it drip off, and place them like that. Or if you want a little bit more chocolate, I'm just going to move this one over so it's on my parchment. I've got a little bit of parchment paper here. Let's just do one the other way. So if you want a little bit more chocolate, you just do it this way as well. It's all up to you. So you're going to have a little bit more dripping on the edges. But this is just as easy or easier. So just a little dip. Let it drip off. Flip it back over. So we'll do another one. Dip, dip, dip. Drip it off. And our last one. And if you pop these into the fridge, you're going to get the chocolate really setting up nicely, and you'll have a little bit of a crunch on there as well, which is kind of nice. And there we have it. Okay, so let's just zoom in and check these out a little closer up. So I've just zoomed in for the final seconds of our recipe. I have my really nice chocolate brownie with that really nice dark chocolate on top. I hope you give these a try at home. They're super, super easy, really fun to